Welcome, Galactic Jedis. Thank you for being here today. Well, I want to just let you guys know that I am so excited. I want to just share something with you guys. I've been doing massive research in the last 2 weeks to reveal further information. I was actually informed by the High Council that humanity is ready for more. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be dropping some serious information. All right, I just want to let you guys know that I'm going to be revealing um, who the top 10 most powerful entities are, both good and bad, in the entire multiverse in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. I also want to give thanks to everyone for being here. What is today? Saturday night. Thank you so much for spending your Saturday evening with me. Now, today's subject is rather a controversial subject because many people interpret the end of the world with major cataclysms. They call it tectonic crustal displacement, right? The pole shift where continents rise and fall. Some people call it, the end of the world in a sense where all of a sudden, uh, due to some major parenting event, right? Everyone dies. And that is not the case, okay? There is this thing called that transition of ages where we go from one epoch into the next, okay? So let me just state a fact that the world has never ended, okay? This world, this planet has been here for billions of years. So I just wanted to see if my audio is good. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you guys could hear me? All right, so I just wanted to make sure I'm trying something new out here at the studio. All right, so I guess my audio is good. So let's continue. So the world has never ended, guys. You know, it. What that means is that we are living in a time where the age known as the age of Aquarius is coming to an end, but there is a new age that is going to follow the age of Aquarius, that is going to emerge as a result of the end of the age of Aquarius. And that is known, I'm sorry, the end of Pisces, and that is known as the age of Aquarius. So what we're experiencing right now is a chaotic time, a chaotic moment. And I would like to approach this subject based on the different world mythologies, world religions, and then, of course, even some of the records that were shared by the indigenous native traditions, as well as modern New Age um, philosophy that describes the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new cycle. So, with that in mind, let me start off by describing what the ancient Sumerians, who happen to be the most, I guess, ancient culture, right next to Egypt. They say that Sumeria emerged out of nothing overnight. Of course, we do know that Atlantis was a civilization that predated ancient Mesopotamia, right? So we're going to start with the mythologies and traditions regarding the end of times. And bear in mind that every mythology, every religion has a common denominator when it comes to the end of the cycle and the beginning of a new world age. So, according to the Mesopotamian Sumerian beliefs, they describe the end of the world as a time of the ending of civilization, right? They call it, and this is included in ancient Akkadian cultures, Assyrians, Babylonians. They all had a rich mythological tradition that includes, such stories like the flood, right? The flood, which is a universal event that echoes throughout every tradition, right? That is an example of how one age ended and a new age began. So we could say that this event known as the flood is a universal event that actually has been recorded by every ancient culture. They also associate it with wars, of course. And what are they trying to do right now? They're trying to facilitate the Third World War. All right. So it's also related with chaos. Well, what's happening right now is that the entire paradigm, the entire social structure as we know it, both political and economic, is collapsing. So chaos is associated with it, which symbolizes world ending events. Okay. So let's start with the idea that there was a flood. Okay. So every ancient culture talked about this idea that say 6,000, 7,000 years ago, this event known as the Great Flood occurred. All right, that was recorded by every ancient tradition, and every religion talks about that. Well, that was a transition, by the way, from one age to the next. And then we also have divine wars and chaos, okay? So Mesopotamian mythology speaks of wars among the gods that had catastrophic consequences for the earth. All right, so we do know that when the positive or the good gods are in control, we have golden ages, right, in ancient times. And then we do know that when the evil gods take control, we have what? Dark ages, okay? So now we are ending the dark age, okay? And we are going to be witnessing the rise of the new era or a new age. What? With the return of the new gods, a new set of gods and goddesses, which is what? The indigo races, the star people that are living among us. You know, it's all of you guys. Okay, so we know that they also incorporate cosmological cycles, right? They talk about how everything is cyclic, right? We have the rise and fall of civilizations, right? Periods of divine rule and chaos, alternating back and forth, right? This concept implies a recurring end and rebirth of the world, okay? Though less explicitly defined than in other cultures like Hinduism. Of course, according to the Hindu tradition, they're known as the yugas. So every ancient culture describes these cycles under different names. So we also know that they incorporate symbolism and interpretation. These stories are deeply symbolic and reflected the Mesopotamians' understanding of the world's unpredictable and other chaotic nature. Floods were very common in ancient times. Apparently, there were more than one flood. All right, there were different types of floods. So floods have always existed, right? Um, rivers that overflow, right? In ancient Mesopotamia, making them a potent symbol for world-ending events. So the concept or the idea of the end of the world has been repeating over time in many different cultures. Influences on other cultures. The Mesopotamian flood narrative that parallels in many cultures, most notably in the Bible, we've already talked about that. The idea that Noah was preserved during a time when one age was ending and a new age was beginning. Okay, so we've already talked about that. So the Mesopotamian eschatological narrative are among the first records of humanity's contemplation of the end of the world, highlighting both a fear of natural disasters and a recognition of the divine powers that control the fate of humanity. And right now, there's a lot of fear mongering when it comes to the end of the world, right? A lot of people have seen the movie 2012 and really take it literally and believe that that's a catastrophe that is inevitable. But I guarantee you it's not going to happen, okay? So we can explore ancient Egyptian eschatology and see the resemblances or the correlations, focusing on their unique perspective of the end of the world as it pertains to the afterlife and cosmic order. So let's go and review what the ancient Egyptian tradition has to say about the end of the world. So ancient Egyptian eschatology focused less on the end of the world in a catastrophic sense and more on the journey of the soul in the afterlife, okay? So that is their meaning of the end of the world, the idea that we move on to this other, to a different dimension, right? The concept of Ma'at, which represents cosmic order, and the cyclical nature of life in the cosmos, right? Which is a cycle, right? Death and rebirth. The Egyptian view of the end times was closely tied in to their beliefs about the afterlife and the maintenance of cosmic balance. So, what is Ma'at? M-A-A-T. Well, it stands for the cosmic order. So, Ma was both a goddess and a concept representing truth, balance, order, law, morality, and justice in the universe. So it is obviously a good thing. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh's duty was to uphold Ma'at, which is balance, justice, morality, and order. If Ma'at were ever to be disrupted, it would result in chaos and potentially the end of the world, okay? So in the afterlife, as depicted in the Book of the Dead, a person's heart was weighted against the feather of Ma'at, again, which represents balance, justice, morality, order. This ceremony was overseen by Osiris, the god of the afterlife, and other deities like Anubis, the god of embalming and the dead, and Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. If the heart was heavier than the feather, indicating a life of wrongdoing, the soul would be devoured by a meat, which is known as, of course, the Egyptians call that is their version of the demons or the demos, and then they cease to exist. Of course, the soul would cease to exist. That's what they say. This is what they believed, okay? But this is not true. The soul is immortal. Remember that. The soul is immortal. The body is just an avatar. Okay, so what about the role that the pharaohs and the priests and the high priestess took? Okay, so the pharaohs and priestess played a crucial role in maintaining the divine cosmic order here on the earth. They performed rituals and constructed temples and pyramids, which were not just tombs, but part of a larger cosmological worldview that included the journey in the afterlife and the sustenance of the gods. So let's talk about the story of Ra and Apophis. One of the most striking myths related to the end of the world is the daily journey of Ra, the sun god, by the way. That's what Ra represents in ancient Egyptian traditions, through the sky and the underworld. Each night, Ra, which is our sun, is in his solar bark, had to fight Apophis, a serpent representing chaos and destruction. If Ra ever failed, it would mean the end of the world, right? Of course, we do know that that's symbolically describing our sun. And of course, if our sun all of a sudden forgot to rise the next day, that would signify the end of the world, because life on earth is dependent upon the universal life force that comes from our sun. Whether you call it Ra, whether we call it Helios, whether we call it Solaris, I mean, our sun has various and multiple names. So Ra's victory every morning symbolizes the triumph of order over chaos. All right, cycles and destructions, that's another common denominator in all traditions. And the renewal, right? The renewal. So the Egyptians also believed in the cyclical nature of the universe. The story of the sun god's daily battle reflects this, as does the regular flooding of the Nile, which was central to Egyptian life and symbolism. Egyptian eschatological beliefs are deeply entwined with the religion, mythology, and the natural world around them. They prove a unique perspective on the end of time, focusing more on the maintenance of cosmic balance and the journey after death rather than a catastrophic end of the world, which is exactly what's happening right now. We are not going to be witnessing the destruction of planet Earth. We're not going to be witnessing the destruction of mankind. We are going to be witnessing the elimination of the wicked, according to the original prophecies, right? Which is going to usher in the age of light and love on planet Earth. So Egyptian eschatology beliefs are deeply intertwined. I've already read that. So next, let's dive into the complex eschatology derived from ancient India, specifically Hinduism, which involves cycles of ages, the yugas, and the concept of cosmic dissolution. All right, so let's talk about the Indian interpretation of the end of times. So in Hinduism, eschatology is deeply intertwined with the concept of cosmic cycles, the ages of the world, the yugas, and the eventual dissolution and rebirth of the universe. It's a complex and rich tapestry of belief that reflects the cyclical nature of time and the universe, as opposed to a linear end of the world scenario. So the yugas, Hindu cosmology divides time into four main epochs or yugas: Sata Yuga, Tetra Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Each yuga represents a phase in the moral and physical decline of the world, with Kali Yuga being the last and the age of darkness and decay, which is what we're now ending, by the way. So we are in the final days of the Kali Yuga, according to the eschatology interpretation of ancient India. The current age, according to Hindu belief, is Kali Yuga, characterized by strife, decay, and a departure from Dharma, which is cosmic order, right, and law, and divine stability. It's believed that during this time, human virtue and morality deteriorate, leading to a world engulfed in chaos and moral decay. And that's what's happening on a mass scale, right? With the Kabbal's agenda is a deterioration of morality, the unit of society known as the family, and of course, the entire destruction of righteousness. Okay, let's continue. So this is so the end of the Kali Yuga is believed to culminate in a period, of destruction, and that's what's happening right now. Things around the world are falling into a period of destruction. In other words, the old paradigm, the old order is collapsing, right? The old guard is collapsing, right? The old guard, the cabal. This is not seen as a permanent end, but a transition into a new cycle. Okay. After this destruction, it's believed that Satya Yuga, known as the Golden Age, which is the age represented by truth and righteousness, will begin again. So, what is the role of the avatars in eschatology? Okay, so in Hindu eschatology, Vishnu, the preserver among the Hindu trinity, is said to descend in the form of an avatar. In other words, it is believed that he will be incarnating, or she, and restore cosmic order during these times. For instance, it's prophesied that the Kalki, that's what they call the avatar, that is supposed to lead the 144,000 and the starseeds, right, the light warriors, into the final victory against darkness in order to usher in the golden age of the Satya Yuga, which is the golden age of enlightenment. Cosmic dissolution. Okay, so Hinduism also speaks of pralaya, a period of cosmic dissolution when the universe is destroyed and then recreated. This is not just an end, but part of an eternal cycle of creation, preservation, and destruction. So we do know that everything is cyclic. And that explains why there will be a new heaven and a new earth. So in other words, the old earth, the old universe is coming into an end, but we're going to be translating into a new heaven or a new universe and a new earth upon the solar flash, according to this document. So another thing to consider is discussing these concepts include the Puranas, the Mahabharata, and various Upanishads. So this is all recorded in these records, by the way. Figures like Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita discuss the impermanence of the physical world and the eternal nature of the soul. The Hindu eschatological framework is unique in its cyclical conception of time and the universe, emphasizing the continuity and periodic renewal of existence rather than a final apocalyptic end. Next, we can explore the eschatological beliefs of ancient Greece, which include various myths and stories about cataclysmic events and their symbolic meaning. All right, so the Greeks. The ancient Greeks' mythology, unlike some of the other cultures, does not have a unified concept of an end of the world apocalypse. However, it does contain stories of cataclysmic events and cycles of destruction and rebirth, which provides insight into their understanding of the world's end. So, according to the Greek translations, and according to Hesiod, who was a Greek poet, in his writings, Theogony and the Works and Days describes a succession of ages, from the Golden Age to the Silver Age to the Bronze Age, and then, of course, to the Iron Age, which is what the Hindus call the Kali Yuga, the age of hell on earth, which is an age that we are now ending. Each age represents a decline in moral virtue and the condition of human life, with the Iron Age being the last, characterized by strife and degradation. So we could actually say that the age of Iron Age, which represents the Kali Yuga, was when Marduk, the age of Arius, took over in 3114 BC. So we are now coming to that end. That's an age that lasted 5,000 years, right? That's when the age of the Ram, which was ruled by Marduk, Belial, Baal, took over the affairs of our planet. So this makes perfect sense. This narrative suggests a decline towards an eventual collapse or transformation. So even the ancient Greeks believed that at the end of the age of Pisces, that instead of the end of the world, that there would be a transformation. All right, and they're talking about the transformation of the human species into Homo galactus or Homo luminous. So the deluge myths, which again has to do with the idea of floods. So even the Greek mythologies talked about these floods. Okay, so let's see. So they also talk about the cycle of nature and the cosmos. Again, these are common denominators that could be explained according to every mythology, every ancient culture, so on and so forth. So the Greeks viewed the cosmos and nature as cyclical with periodic renewals and destruction, just like all the other ones, right? They all talk about that, right? The rise and fall of empires, the rise and fall of civilizations. This view is embodied in the natural cycle they observe, such as the seasons and agricultural cycles. So Greek philosophers also contemplated the end of the world. For example, the Stoics. The Stoics believed in a cyclical universe where periodic conflagrations, is that even a word? I guess it is. Conflagrations would consume the cosmos, leading to its rebirth. Influence of Greek eschatology. So while not eschatological in its strict sense, that makes no sense, Greek myths and philosophical concepts influenced later cultures, especially through the works of poets like Virgil and the philosopher Plato. The Greek approach in eschatology, with its focus on cycles, moral decline, and the renewal of the world, offers a distinct perspective that contrasts with linear apocalyptic visions found in some other ancient culture. All right, so next we could turn our attention to the eschatological beliefs of ancient China, which are deeply rooted in its philosophical traditions and views on cosmic harmony and order. So according to the ancient Chinese eschatology interpretation, like those in Greek and Hindu cultures, often centered on the idea of cyclical time and cosmic balance rather than a singular apocalyptic event. These beliefs are deeply intertwined with Chinese philosophy, mythology, and the natural world. So the concept of yin and yang, central to Chinese thought is the concept of yin and yang, which represents opposing but complementary forces, right? The balance of duality. The balance of these forces was crucial for the harmony of the cosmos. Any significant imbalance could lead to a period of chaos and disorder akin to the end of times. They all agree that, we are living in a time where all of a sudden we're seeing the rise of chaos and disorder everywhere in our human culture. So another thing that they point out is dynastic cycles and the mandate of heaven. The idea of the mandate of heaven in Chinese philosophy and political theory is closely related to eschatological beliefs. A dynasty would lose the mandate due to corruption or failing to uphold moral and social order, leading to natural disasters and social upheaval, seen as signs of the end of the dynasty. This cycle of the rise and fall of dynasties was seen as the natural order of the cosmos. So, of course, they also talk about floods and the cosmic order. Just like all the ancient cultures, Chinese mythology also include their stories of the great floods, right? So this is an event that echoes in every culture, obviously. For example, the most famous is the story of the Yu, the Great, who controlled the waters during a massive flood, symbolizing the reestablishment of cosmic and earthly order. The Taoist. Now, let's examine the Taoist eschatology. In Taoism, while there isn't a specific focus on the end of the world, there is an emphasis on the natural order and the flow of Tao, which is the way. Disruptions in the flow could lead to a period of chaos, but ultimately, the Tao is seen as eternal and self-correcting. Buddhist influence with the introduction of Buddhism into China, some eschatological ideas were observed, such as the concept of Maitreya, a future Buddha who would appear on earth to restore the Dharma and bring about a golden age. This is a lot sounding like the Kalki Yuga, or like the Kalki avatar of the Hindus. Legends and mythology, Chinese mythology is replete with stories of heroes, gods, and immortals who interact with the human world and affect its destiny. These stories often reflect a belief in the cyclical nature of time and the continuous struggle to maintain balance and order in the cosmos. Ancient Chinese eschatology, with its focus on dynastic cycles, cosmic balance, and the eternal flow of the Tao, provides a unique perspective on the end of the world, emphasizing renewal and the restoration of order rather than a final cataclysm. Next, we can explore Judeo-Christian eschatology, which includes well-known concepts like the apocalypse of the book of Revelation. All right, so let's talk about the religious interpretation according to Judeo-Christian traditions. So, Judeo-Christian eschatology, particularly within Christianity, presents a linear view of history culminating in a final end of the world scenario. This perspective is primarily derived from the Bible, including both the Hebrew scriptures, Old Testament and New Testament. Jewish eschatology, messianic expectations in Judaism, the concept of a Messiah, a future anointed leader sent by God to restore Israel and usher in an era of peace is central. The Tanakh, Hebrew Bible, includes various prophecies regarding the Messiah. For example, Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4 states, "We will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many people. They will bear their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore." Okay. The day of the Lord, according to Christianity, this is a recurring theme in the prophetic writings describing a future day when God will intervene in history, judge the world, and bring about the redemption of the righteous. In the book of Zechariah, chapter 1, verse 14 says, "The great day of the Lord is near and coming quickly." Now, according to Christian eschatology, the book of Revelation, the most detailed New Testament account of the end of times is found in the book of Revelation, traditionally attributed to John the Apostle. It describes a series of apocalyptic visions, including the rise of the Antichrist, the Great Tribulation, and the Battle of Armageddon in chapter 1. Chapter 21, verse 1, states, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away." This is starting to sound like the Hindu interpretation of a new universe and a new earth, right? And there were no longer any sea. Interesting. The second coming of a Christ, again, according to Christian eschatology. Central to Christian eschatology is the belief in the second coming of Jesus Christ, who will return to judge the living and the dead and establish a new heaven and a new earth. Matthew chapter 24, verse 30 to 31 describes this event. "Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the people of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and glory." This is starting to sound like the coming of the Kalki avatar and Maitreya. All right. Again, this Messiah figure, or which is what I call the leader of the starseed nations, or the leader of the 144,000, is known by various names. But according to the secret esoteric tradition, this figure is incarnated in human form. This figure does not come from the sky. This is, of course, according to open exoteric religious texts, which, of course, we know have been corrupted. So they talk about the rapture and the resurrection. Many Christians believe in the rapture, where believers will be taken up to heaven before the tribulation. This is followed by the resurrection of the dead and the final judgment. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, and the dead in Christ will rise after. After that, we who are still alive are left, will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. So this is all according to Christian eschatology beliefs, of course. Next, let's delve into the Islamic eschatology, which shares some similarities with Judeo-Christian end times beliefs, but also has distinct features. All right, so let's talk about the Islamic eschatology. So, Islamic eschatology is a significant aspect of Muslim faith, dealing with the events that will happen at the end of time. These beliefs are primarily based on the Quran, the Hadiths. Okay, so number one, they believe in the Day of Judgment, which is very similar to Judeo-Christianity, right? The central event in Islamic eschatology is the Day of Judgment, which the Quran states, the hour has come near and the moon has split. According to the Korah, this day will be marked by the resurrection of the dead, divine judgment, and the eternal destination of souls, either in paradise or in hell. Again, this is according to religious doctrines, guys. I don't believe in the religious doctrines, okay? But I am going to share all the different interpretations regarding the end of time as we know it. So the signs of the hour, they are minor and major signs that precede the day of judgment. The minor signs include moral decay, widespread injustice, and natural disasters. Major signs include the coming of the Dajjal, the Islamic Antichrist, the descent, which is going to usher in the descent of Jesus from heaven, and the appearance of Gog and Magog, among others. The coming of the Mahdi. So the coming of the Mahdi is the Islamic interpretation of the Kalki avatar, of Maitreya, and of course of the second coming of the Christ. So they call it the Mahdi, okay? They call it the Mahdi. The Mahdi is a messianic figure who is believed to appear before the day of judgment to restore justice and righteousness. The Hadith describes, even in the entire duration of the world's existence, has already been exhausted and only one day is left before doomsday. Allah will expand the day to such a length of time as to accommodate the kingdom of a person from my Ahlul Bai, who will be called by my name, Sahih Atma. This is, I can't pronounce these Muslim names, but anyway, so basically, all of these traditions, whether we interpret them from mythology or whether we interpret them from religion, they all pretty much have a common denominator, but of course they call them under different names, right? So we do know that there's going to be the return of some Messiah, right? They all know him by the different names. They all have a final judgment and an afterlife. And what else? And that's it. So now let's explore the eschatological beliefs of Native American cultures, which are diverse and rich in their perspective on the end of times. So let's go according to the Native American cultures. They also have their own interpretation of eschatology. So Native American eschatology beliefs are diverse and vary greatly among different tribes and cultures. Their beliefs are often deeply connected to nature, the cycle of seasons, and the land. Here are some examples, okay? So let's refer to the Hopi prophecies. The Hopi, a Pueblo Native American tribe, have a series of prophecies concerning the end of times, known as the Hopi prophecies. They speak of a series of worlds or ages, each ending in destruction due to the moral and spiritual failures of humanity. The current time is believed to be the fourth world, which will end to give way to the fifth world, characterized by a return to spiritual harmony. So according to the Hopi tradition, the fourth world is also equivalent to the Kali Yuga or to the Iron Age, which is the age of darkness. And they did mention that that will be followed by the fifth world, which is going to be the Golden Age, okay? The Golden Age. So the Lakota people, The Lakota people have the white buffalo calf woman prophesizing. She foretells the appearance of a white buffalo calf, a sign of the coming of a time of great change and the potential for either a positive transformation or a negative, destructive change depending on humanity's actions. So now, according to the great law of peace, the Iroquois don't have an end of the world myth in the cataclysm apocalypse sense. However, their great law of peace focuses on the importance of maintaining balance and harmony, suggesting that failing to do so could lead to societal culture decline. Now, according to the Mayan calendar, although not North American, the Mayan of Mesoamerica had a complex calendar system that gained widespread attention due to the 2012 phenomenon. Of course, we do know that the original Mayan calendar is actually corresponding with the 2024 year, right? This is the year. This is the real 2012. 2024 is the real end of the Mayan calendar, by the way. But contrary to the popular interpretation, this did not simplify an apocalyptic end, but rather the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. Now, according to the Anishinaabe, I guess this is a tribe called the OGB tribe, seven fire prophecies. These prophetic speaks of seven epochs of fires, each representing a phase of life and the choice faced by the people. The prophecy indicates that in the time of the seventh fire, a new people would emerge, and they would retrace their steps to find the wisdom that was left by the roadside in the past. This journey could lead to an era of enlightenment and renewal or destruction if the wisdom is not found. Native American eschatological beliefs generally emphasize the cyclical nature of time, the importance of living in harmony with nature and one another, and the consequences of straying, from these principles. They often offer a choice, a path toward renewal and rebirth on a path toward or path of destruction, reflecting the importance of human agency and responsibilities. Next, we can explore Norse mythology, which includes the well-known concept of Ragnarok, the prophesied battle at the end of the world. So, according to Norse mythology, originating from ancient Scandinavia, presents a vivid and dramatic eschatology, particularly in the concept of Ragnarok. This is a series of events, including a great battle leading to the death of major gods, natural disasters, and the submersion of the world in water. Afterward, the world will resurface anew and fertile, and surviving and returning gods will meet, and two human survivors will repopulate the earth. So, number one, according to the book known as the Firm Bull Winter, this prelude to Ragnarok is the Firm Bull Winter, 3 successive winters with no summers in between. During this time, chaos and lawlessness will reign, and moral order will collapse. Okay, according to the breaking of Gillarhorn, Hainsdall, the watchman of the gods, will sound his horn. Sounds like Gabriel, right? Gabriel's going to sound the trumpet, signaling the beginning of the end. The sound will be heard in all worlds, and the gods will assemble in battle. The release of Loki, starting to sound like Thor, right? Who is actually the half-brother of Thor. Loki, the trickster god, who resembles Enki in the Sumerian traditions, who has been bounded by the gods, will break free, as well as his son Fenrir, the great wolf. And they will rise from the depths of the ocean, causing massive floods. So this is according to Norse mythology, guys. The battle of the gods including Odin, Thor, Freya, and others will fight against the forces of chaos, including Loki, Fenrir, and Jarmungard. Many gods will die in this battle. For example, Odin will be swallowed by Fenrir, and Thor will be killed by Jormungand, but will die from its poison. The destruction and renewal of the world, according to Norse mythology. The world will be engulfed in flames caused by the fire giant Sorf. Everything will be destroyed, including the gods themselves. However, a new world will rise from the waters with green and fertile. The new world, two humans, Lif and Lifrasir, will survive by hiding in the wood of Hodensmir, Holt. They will emerge to repopulate the earth. Some gods, such as Balk, Hok, and a few others, will return to inhabit the new world. The moral of the story is that Ragnarok reflects the Norse belief in the cyclical nature of time and the inevitability of change and renewal. Its story of destruction followed by rebirth, and of course, the enduring power of nature and life. Ragnarok, with its dramatic narrative and rich symbolism, is one of the most compelling stories in Norse mythology, capturing the imagination with its depiction of the end of the world and the hope of renewal. So, to conclude our exploration of the end of the world scenario eschatology, according to all the traditions, we can look now into the New Age eschatology, a modern blend of various spiritual and philosophical traditions. So, according to New Age eschatology is a modern spiritual movement that blends elements from various religious, mystical, and philosophical traditions. It has often emphasized personal spiritual transformation and the evolution of consciousness, of human consciousness, rather than focusing on traditional apocalyptic end of the world scenarios. So, number one, the Age of Aquarius. The Age of Aquarius is a central concept in the New Age thought that is to transition from the Age of Pisces into the Age of Aquarius. This transition is believed to bring a shift in consciousness from materialism and dualism to one of harmony, enlightenment, and spiritual awakening, which is what's happening right now. Secondly, global awakening. Many New Age beliefs focus on the idea of a global spiritual awakening where humanity collectively evolves to a higher state of consciousness. This is often envisioned as a peaceful, transformative process rather than a catastrophic event. Harmonizing with nature. New Age thought often emphasizes the importance of living in harmony with Mother Earth and with one another. The belief is that a new era of environmental awareness and sustainability will emerge, healing the planet and its inhabitants. And then, of course, we have syncretism and personal transformation. So the New Age eschatology is characterized by a syncretic approach combining elements from Eastern and Western spiritual traditions, astrology, psychology, and modern science. Personal spiritual transformation is seen as a key component of global change. 2012 phenomena. The 2012 phenomena. An example of New Age eschatological beliefs is the emphasis on the year 2012, which, of course, again, it is really the year of 2024. We are living in 2012. 2024 is the equivalent, guys, of 2012. Okay? Which some predicted catastrophic events. Most New Age thinkers spoke of 2012 as the moment of significant spiritual transition and transformation. And they're referring to 2024. Let's not go according to the Gregorian calendar, right? We're 12 years behind, or not us, but the Gregorian calendar. The role of individuals. In the New Age believes each individual plays a crucial role in the evolution of our world's consciousness. Personal spiritual practices, healing, and growth are seen as contributing to the collective well-being and transformation of society. So, New Age eschatology, with its focus on spiritual evolution and the transformation of consciousness, offers more of an optimistic and individual-centered view of the end times compared to many traditional religious narratives. It reflects a contemporary desire for a more interconnected and spiritually attuned world. This concludes our explanation of various cultures and religious eschatological beliefs from around the world, from ancient civilizations to modern spiritual movements. Each presents a unique perspective on the end of the world and what it signifies for humanity and the cosmos. So we do know that they all have a common denominator. They all talk about a collapsing of an old world that leads to chaos and disorder, and a renewal of a better world that results in a golden age. Okay, it's a cycle, right? We begin as the golden age, we go into the silver, and then to the bronze, the iron. Well, what's next, guys? The golden age. We're expecting to go into the golden age. Also, remember, according to theosophy and esoteric literature, right? There has been many epochs, right? We had the Atlantean epoch, right? Atlantean also had a golden age, right? And then it went into a decline, and then it ended up in a cataclysm, right? Well, before Atlantis, we also had Lemuria, right? And then before Lemuria, we had Hyperborea. Before Hyperborea, we had Polaria. And now we're going to be entering into what is known as the fifth root race, the sixth root race, which is going to be ushering in the golden age of enlightenment because of us, the volunteers, the light warriors that are all here at this time. So now I'm going to take some questions and answers. I've been talking for about almost 50 minutes. So if you guys have some questions and answers, please throw them at me at this time with capital letters. I want to welcome all 618 people that are on the live at this time. Oops, turn off the volume here. All right, so questions and answers. I'm going to start at the bottom. Yes, there is lots of energy here. All right, so can you share? Austin McDowell is saying, can you share what you know about Archangel Ariel? Well, Archangel Ariel is a feminine angel, actually. Or is it Uriel? Well, I guess Uriel would be the masculine aspect of Ariel, but Archangel Ariel is a feminine archangel. I don't really know much about Archangel Ariel. And you're probably asking because Archangel Ariel is probably your main guide, I would assume, right? We all have a primary archangel that we work with. For instance, I work with Michael, Melchizedek, and Metatron. Those are my three primary archangels that I work with. So every single one of you guys has their own particular archangels that you guys work with. All right, let's see. So Liz Kerstein is saying, Order of the Blue Rose. What is that? Well, after the fall of the Essene Brotherhood, right, the community of Qumran, who were the great white brotherhood and sisterhood during the times of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, it is believed that Mary Magdalene continued the order under a new name, and so she adopted the name, the Order of the Blue Rose, which, of course, later we've come to find out that they resurrected under the Holy Order of the Grail of the Priory of Zion. So it has a lot to do with preserving the ancient teachings of the divine feminine, of the great mother goddess, the great balance between them both, and of course, a lot of the ancient secret teachings of the ancient mystery schools. So the Order of the Blue Rose continued even after Mary Magdalene went to France. And then, of course, later they reorganized themselves as the Order of the Grail. San Gita saying, what is the new religion going to be? Well, the whole point of entering this new golden age of enlightenment is to end all religions. We don't want a new religion. We want every human being to have that direct connection with their higher self, which is the living Christ, with which resides in all of us. Now, Cosmic Goddess, thank you for your super chat. Greetings, Ishmael. Has the emerald and Sumerian tablets been tampered with, and is thought good or bad? The emerald information of the original CDT plates were tampered with. And of course, we do know that it was Thoth, who was another son of Enki, who was the perpetrator of that. And what he did is he wrote them on different levels of understanding. He wrote one interpretation for the general masses, which include the Hermetic principles and the secret teachings of magic. And then, of course, he also wrote one strictly that were the guiding that were set as guiding principles to the Cabal families. So that's who corrupted the original teachings was Thoth, by the way. So we do have another super chat from Michael. No, I'm sorry, from Michelle James. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for your super chat. Were the original Hebrews the black race? That is a very good question. The original Hebrews were not Aryan, like they didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes, right? And they weren't African either. They didn't have woolly hair and dark skin. They were somewhere in between. If I were to describe their physical appearance, I would say that the original Hebrews uh, derived from Mesopotamia, the Middle East. So they were probably bronze. They were probably really bronze. Could be brown skin, but not like black as in African, and not Aryan as in blonde hair, blue eye Nordic. They were somewhere in between. So I would say that they were bronze skin with dark hair, and in some cases, some of them had, green eyes, hazel eyes, which explains the Rh negative blood type. Of course, a lot of them have the green eyes, the hazel eyes. Um, you have to understand that a lot of these original Hebrews were also they fled to different parts of the world. So some of them mix with the African races. So we do have some current African races today that have that original Hebrew blood, and then some of them went to Europe and became some of the European races. So, but the original Hebrews were actually bronze. They were, I don't want to say brown, but they were their skin was very bronze, like golden, you could say, golden skin. Mary Jane Strove, thank you for your donation and for the number one, sister. I appreciate that. All right. So no, actually, I don't know if this is a question or a statement from Jewel Eye. She says, U.S. Aquarians will play a huge part going forward. Well, America is going to play a pivotal role in you could say, in the downfall of the cabal. Once we get rid of the cabal here in this country and we implement the new rainbow currency through Nasera, then Sarah will follow for the rest of the world. Thank you, Julius, for your wonderful donation. Thank you, sister. I'm looking for questions here. How's everyone doing out there? I want to welcome all 670 people who are in the house. Thank you guys for being here. Mm. Cosmic Goddess, thank you so much for your donation, sister. Ishmael, is planet Earth an abandoned seed colony? Can you speak more about the indigo starseed race? Sure. So, to answer the first part of your question, no, planet Earth was never an abandoned seed colony. However, planet Earth has been under a quarantine for the last 15,000 years, ever since Marduk, the son of Enki, took over the affairs and the reins of power. But his time is up. He has been overthrown. And so, planet Earth right now is also at the focal, it is the center of all attention in the cosmos. So we could say that all eyes are on us at this time because it also plays a very important figure in the ascension of our not only our galaxy but our entire universe. And the second part of your question is speak more about the indigo starseed races. Well, we could say that the indigo starseed races originated with the original 12 tribes. Later, they were known as the tribes of Israel, the original ones, okay? Not the Israelis in Palestine today. We're talking about the original ones. They were the original angelic human seed. And so throughout history, that seed has been preserved through the lineage of Zeus, Enlil, and then later through Abraham, and then, of course, King David, Solomon, and then later through Jesus, Mary Magdalene. And now it is about 13%, they say 12 to 13% of the world population, which is every single one of you. So the reason we are here, the reason we were able to incarnate the indigo races, right, is because of the fact that there was a proliferation of this blood during the dark medieval ages, thanks to the Black Madonna. Okay, which has nothing to do with skin color, but it was a secret veneration of the sacred divine feminine by the Knights Templars and those that protected the bloodline. I'm looking for questions, guys. I'm trying to bypass the chat. All right, Stuart Williams is saying, what about the royal blue bloods? Well, the blue bloods are related with the people that are copper blood. Those are the Rh negative blood. They are considered royals because they are actually descendants of the Anunnaki, the original Anunnaki, the Anuhasi, right? Those that can be traceable all the way to Lyra, and Sirius of the Azurites. Those are the blue bloods. All right, of course, later they were infiltrated by the reptilians to corrupt the Rh negative factor. Well, thank you for sharing. Julie Eyes is saying that Ariel is known as the angel of nature. Thank you for sharing that. Isis has a question. Thank you for your donation, sister. Hey, brother, did Enoch transcend into Metatron? Yes, it is believed that Archangel Metatron took embodiment and incarnated as Enoch. And then, of course, after Enoch completed his mission, he later became Metatron again. So they are one and the same. And there is a distinction between Enoch, Thoth, and Hermes Trismegistus. Those are all three separate entities. All right. So Sylvia Vidal, thank you so much for your donation, sister. She's saying, "Hi Ishmael, did you get confirmation from the Galactics that we are going to truly age regress? If not, can you get confirmation from them?" Yes, due to the fact that we are undergoing a genetic mutation, right, as our solar system continues to emerge into the photon belt as it aligns with the galactic central sun. Our genetics right now, as I speak, our celestial etheric genetics are activating. So as our genetics become activated, so does our light body, the Ka body, the energetic subtle vehicles. As we integrate those with our physical body, due to the stellar um, activation cycle that our planet is undergoing at this time, we are going to be translated or transfigured into immortals. So yes, we're not going to taste death. In fact, we're going to be regressing to looking back to what we did, what we looked like. I'm sorry, to looking back to what we looked like when we were 30 years old. Cosmic goddess. Oh, I've already answered your question. Isis. Isis is in the house. Hey, Isis, how you doing? Thank you for incarnating again. Have you found your Osiris? No, I'm just kidding. So Isis has a question. Hey, brother, what happened to Enoch? Is he Metatron? Yes, same question. Enoch and Metatron are the same entity. So Gemini Moon wants to know, is there anything good about the positive blood? Absolutely. The Rh positive blood type, which is 87% of the world population, carries a little bit of everything. You know, even though a lot of star seeds are incarnated in Rh positive, it doesn't mean anything other than they have a little bit of mammalian DNA, they have a little bit of celestial genetics, and they have a little bit of reptilian. We all have a little bit of reptilian genetics, even Rh negatives, by the way. That is known as the R complex, right? In science, right? The lower brain, which is, I believe it's like 3%. I was wrong. I used to think it was 10%, but I believe it's only 3%. All right. So Rh positive blood type is normal. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you just have a little genetic correlation to the Homo erectus and Neanderthal. That's all it means. It's just genetics, guys. This is just a vehicle. All right. This is just a vehicle. Okay, so Mokot is asking, can you recommend us a good book to read? Thank you. Well, my book is probably the most mind-bending, comprehensive detail of the real galactic history, the origin of universes, and much more. So if you guys haven't had the opportunity to order our Cosmic Origin, it's available on Amazon. I always put the direct links to the new edition in the description of every live. So all you got to do is click the link in the description and order our Cosmic Origin. It's only $24.99, guys, but it's, you know, all the information you need to really understand and be ahead of everyone in the disclosure community. Do you have any more questions? I also wanted to share with you guys that lately I've been connecting with the felines of Avion, which was the first Earth. They're actually known as the Urumai. And the Urumai have been giving me permission to release more information to you guys. Of course, so in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be actually channeling more information from the felines of planet Avion of Lyra. All right. All right, so Tony Lopez is saying, Ishmael, the GSF and Ascension timeline is January 2024, spring 2024. But if world events accelerate, timeline, it's January 2024, February 2024, which they are so, do you see this? It could possibly, there is this factor of time acceleration. So, like you mentioned, if things do accelerate, we could actually witness the transition into the new world, sometime in the next couple of months. But, I would say that everything is probably going to lead towards November. Remember November, guys. This is going to be, all right, this year is going to mark you could say, it's going to be the year of revelation and disclosure. The white hats, because they are in a position to now release the list, the crimes against humanity. It's going to be one thing after another. As we get close to November, I'm telling you guys, things are going to be looking good for humanity. All right, so just remember that. So Kim Gratian is asking, hello, Ishmael from Australia. Can you explain what will happen in the 3 days of darkness? By the way, well, thank you for your compliment, Kim. The 3 days of darkness has been prophesied, in many cultures. I would have to say that it could be two things. One of the things is when the white hats take over the internet, shut down all the mass media and then take them over and reveal what's been going on, right, through the EBS. There could be 3 days in their transition as they connect everything to the new Starlink satellite system. It could take up to 3 days of no internet service, no, batteries working, electronics not functioning, cell phones not working. So that's one possibility of 3 days of darkness. Another possibility could be as we emerge fully into the photon band, right, which emanates from the galactic core. There could be 3 days of darkness depending if our solar system emerges first through the backside, or there could be 3 days of pure light if the sun goes in first. So it all depends how our solar system fully emerges into the photon belt. So we could have 3 days of darkness on either end. Again, it could be two different things. It could be the internet shutting down as we switch from the cabal's control to the white hats, Starlink satellite, or as we enter the photon belt and we have 3 days of absolute darkness. In other words, there will be no sun, there will be no reflection through the moon or anything. It's just going to be, darkness. The entire grid is going to go down for 3 days, right? But we do know that after 3 days, planet Earth is going to be operating with a new electromagnetic grid system that is going to allow the Earth to once again operate on different frequencies and dimensions. Because right now the Earth was limited to just one narrow bandwidth called the three-dimensional reality frequency. So as we enter the photon belt, the Earth is going to be replugging herself to the other electromagnetic fields that are going to allow us to perceive life in fourth dimensional Earth and the fifth dimensional Earth. And in some cases, some of us are going to be able to perceive life in sixth dimensional Earth. So I'm going to take one more question, guys, and then I am going to say goodnight. Let's see. All right, Ricky Lee. Ricky Lee's question is, Ishmael, are timelines already splitting and starting to separate? Absolutely, Ricky. Yes. There is an overlapping already, guys, or an overlapping taking place between the new Earth, which is already here, right? Existing on a higher frequency. Again, a lot of it ties in to these other electromagnetic fields that are going to come into play, right? As our solar system emerges fully into the photon belt. And as the old Earth comes to an end, right? So it's already overlapping. It's already overlapping. Now, the trigger that is going to bifurcate these two timelines is, of course, the Great Solar Flash, the event that we have all been expecting. Let's see. All right, guys, with that in mind, I'll take one last super chat from Gemini Moon. Thank you so much for being here, sister. And your question is, thank you, brother, for helping make the world a better place. Your book is amazing. I highly recommend the audible version. You can work out, cook, swim while listening to it. Vibrate high, everyone. Love you all. Oh, thank you, Gemini Moon. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for being here. I want to welcome 745 people on the house. And also, I want to welcome everyone who watches this on the replay. And never give your power away to anyone, guys. Always seek the God within. With that in mind, may the God force be with you all. And I will see you guys Monday night. So I will be going live consecutively now on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm going to keep that consistency. That way you guys always know when I'm about to go live, okay? Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm no longer going to be going live on Saturdays, Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, or Thursdays. I'm sorry, Tuesdays or Thursdays or Saturdays or Sundays. I'm going to be going live from now on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, all right? So I'm going to be consistent with that. May the God force be with you all.